Near effortless cruising at 20 miles per hour on a Schwinn e-bike. Always fun and interesting when it's a Schwinn, unlike any other Schwinn e-bike I've ridden. This is the Schwinn Coston DX, and I hope I'm saying that right because that's what I'm going to go with. The Coston is an upscale kind of Schwinn. Looking at their website, you can see they have the Coston DX labeled as a hybrid. It's available in two colors, sky blue and of course the white that I'm looking at today. It's also available in sized frames, and while they don't give the actual size of each frame, they're listed by range of rider height with three different options, effectively small, medium, and large. The Coston DX can also be purchased directly from the Schwinn site. Well, directly from an Amazon link directly on the Schwinn site. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to take a look at it. The important notes, I said this was an upscale Schwinn. You can see that by the price. The list price is $20.99, though at the time of this video I see that they're selling it for $1804.99. And I see that it's currently in stock in both colors and all three sizes, which is good. That's the origins. Now let's take a look at the actual bike and see how it's equipped and if there are any surprises, anything that jumps out at me. Hint, there are three things that surprised me, but let's start up top at the alloy bars. They're a double bar design, and depending upon your viewpoint, they could either be BMX-ish or utility-ish. They're also kind of mountain bike-ish with a 740mm width and 31.8mm diameter at the stem. Grips, rubber, dual-tone rubber. Schwinn calls them semi-ergo, and note that these are full-size grips on both sides. There'll be a reason to mention that coming up. A thumb length away, that's the trigger shifter. This is a micro shift trigger shifter, 7-speed with a view window. Between that and the grips is one of the two alloy brake levers for the bike's disc brakes. Lever note of importance, it does have a motor cutoff switch. The brakes themselves, 160mm rotors for these mechanical disc brakes. That's front and rear disc brakes. Mechanical means there's a cable on the bike. And the cables, I've been riding them around free range, but the accessory bundle that comes with the bike includes zip ties to keep all this nice and neat. That bundle is not just cables, that's electrical wires too, one of which goes here to the bike's computer display. I'll get into the function of this later. For now, just know it's a monochrome display, and beside it is the throttle. Yes, this bike has a throttle, a thumb throttle. And that's how they get full grips on each side because there's not a twist throttle taking up half of the grip on the right. We know the bars are 31.8mm diameter at the stem. The stem itself, it's an alloy stem and kind of long, 90mm. Moving down, you get a peep at the head tube, and this is a legit tapered head tube with an alloy fork coming out of it. This is a rigid fork with the dropout for the front wheel's quick release axle. It also has a couple of mount points, one for the fender support arm, the other doubles as the top fender support and the bike's headlight mount. The headlight itself, branded DB. Now, I don't have any wattage information on this, but it's quite bright even in daylight. Under that, the front fender, piano black plastic. The support arms keep it in place well. There are no flopping issues at all with this fender. The piano black and the low profile hug the wheel nicely. Front wheel hub lubed, I checked. Spokes, black stainless steel on wheels that are... Look, this is a hybrid, but the tires tell that it's a hybrid for whatever paved path or city street that you want to ride it on. Tire size 27.5 by 2.60. Rims double wall alloy, internal diameter 24mm. If we follow the wires, we get to the power source. For the Coston DX, a flush mounted battery. It is removable, though if you don't want to remove it, there is an integrated charge port for replenishment. Before we get to the electrics though, let's take a look at some of the standard bike components on the Coston. Starting with the pedals, these are polymer pedals that look a lot like the pedals I see on budget mountain bikes. Connected to those, the crank arms, alloy 170mm crank arms, fit to a square taper bottom bracket, 68mm. This is a sealed cartridge type. On the other side, the cadence sensor. Behind this black plastic guard, a 5-spoke car wheel design, there's a single 42-tooth chain ring. And here's something I see less and less these days, a chain guard. And check this out, that's not just a chain guard, that's the tap of a metal chain guard. Nice. And I like the two-tone styling. Moving to the rear of the drivetrain, we see the derailleur. Like the shifter, this is a micro shift 26. This is a model I know very well, typically on budget bikes, but they do work and it'll shift through the bike's 7 gears. Gears courtesy of a 7-speed freewheel. I would have preferred a cassette, yes, but gearheads will quickly spot that this is a mega range freewheel. Taking up the center portion of the rear wheel, that's the rear hub motor. On this bike, that means 36 volts and 250 watts. Powered by the battery we saw earlier, and I want to point this out, by that battery is a Step 1 sticker. There's also a Step 2 sticker on the bike. This shows that the bike must be turned on at the battery first, and then at the bike display controller. Yeah, steps 1 and 2, easy enough. It seems simple, but I myself often forget to turn the battery on first. Let's take a closer look at the battery. I said it was removable. It's removed via a keyed lock. It doesn't fall right out. There's a retention tab that keeps it from exiting the frame without intent. Figured this is a safety feature since it would drop out close to the front wheel. Still, it's easy to remove. It's also physically prominent. Here's what I know a lot of you are going to want to see. The output, we know 36 volts. The capacity, 10 amp hours, 360 watt hours. There's a charge port to use when it's not in the bike, and this is definitely a stylish battery. We'll be coming back to this design. Here's a look at the battery power indicators when the battery's turned on. Installation, super easy. Just reverse the process. It's really click and go. Well, go, of course, after the battery is turned on. Remember, step 1, step 2. Now let's take a look at the frame. This is a 6061 alloy frame with decent looking welds, a quality finish, and internal cable routing, along with this, of course, step-through design. One of my secret joys when reviewing bikes is looking at the design language of the frame. The layout, the curves. This is a visually pleasing frame design with graphics that aren't too much or too little. Classy. That's the word that comes to mind. Bolted to the back half of the frame is the rear rack, max load 9.98 kilograms, which is around 22 pounds. It has a glossy black finish to accent the piano black on the battery and the fenders. Like the rear fender nestled underneath it, on the back of that, the bike's taillight. Now I say taillight because it's a taillight, it's not a brake light, but it is bright enough to be somewhat visible in sunlight. I enjoy reviewing bikes, and I like to think that I'm somewhat observant, but sometimes it's when I'm editing footage that I see even more. Extra details catch my eye. For example, I've seen thousands of seat rails, but it was only when I was editing the footage for this video that I noticed the extra swoops and the silver tone on this saddle's rails. Let's work our way up to that saddle from the seat post, which has a quick release. The post itself, 350 millimeters by 30.4. More obvious is that this is a suspension seat post. Those little accordions hide a small shock absorber built into the post to cush out the ride. Cush also being the beginning of the word cushion, which could in a way describe this saddle. It's wide and it looks thick, but that thick hides one of the 3 surprises I mentioned. At the back of the seat, I noticed what looked like a button, it turns out it is a button, to access the under-seat storage, a feature I totally missed when looking at the bike specs, so pleasant surprise. How much room does it have? Well, it can hold my sunglasses even when they're sitting upright, and I can close it without crunching down on them, so wallet, keys, and sunglasses, I would say entirely possible. On top of that, and I literally mean on top of that, as in seat padding, more design detail. Wide ride saddles often omit the relief groove. It's present here. Good for you, Coston DX. Good for you. Second surprise, somewhat related because we can follow the seat tube down to find this. When I first looked over the bike, I had to do a double take. I have mountain bikes that don't have a port I can use for a dropper post. The Coston DX though, a hybrid, well, there you go. I know dropper posts do exist outside of mountain biking, but I didn't think I would see one on a cruiser-ish e-bike. Apparently for Schwinn, every option is on the table. I'm already intrigued and there's still one surprise left, but first, all of this would be for naught if it didn't work well as a bike and then of course as an e-bike. Cliff's Notes version. As a bike, the micro shift derailleur and trigger shifter work through all gears perfectly, as I expect from this setup. There are 5 pedal assist levels. Each level adds a little more oomph to the output, and at pedal assist 5 you can definitely feel the push and hear it as the power ramps up. Riding position, very much like a classic city cruiser, very upright. But this is a hybrid, so it's designed for a little bit of adventure. But there is definitely an upright feel, but that doesn't keep it from being somewhat nimble, in a more cruisery-ish, nimble sort of way, if that makes sense. Probably the number one question I get on any e-bike is how fast will it go? This will quickly, yet smoothly, accelerate to 20 miles per hour, its max speed, which it will do without much effort. Now this is a cadence sensing hub-driven e-bike, so there's a second question I get asked. How's the pedaling? Here's my cadence at 20 miles per hour. Is there any run out of pedal effect? At points the output can outpace the resistance on the pedals, but for the most part, there's always resistance in the highest gear. Cadence lag, the lag between on and off as I pedal, very similar to the other Schwinn e-bikes I've ridden, meaning fractions of a second. I mentioned the cadence is fine at 20 miles per hour. On a big hill, the bike can outrun its gearing. Here's an example. At 33 miles per hour, I'm well past any assist and the bike's gearing. Note it will coast downhill like a champ. Good sign for the hubs. Speeds at each pedal assist level. Pedal assist 1 will get you up to about 10 miles per hour. Pedal assist 2, 13. 3 is 17 miles per hour. 4 and 5 are both around 20. The difference is how quickly it gets you there. Throttle works all the way up to 20. I got GoPro'd so I didn't capture the footage, but this steep downhill, I went back up this and was able to climb it with no problems in second gear. Throttle only didn't have enough to make it all the way up. I got about halfway. 250 watts, it does find its limits in throttle only on some hills. Sometimes when I'm going through footage, I notice that on some e-bikes I throttle a lot. On this bike, I noticed I'm almost always pedaling it, so I guess I have more fun with this bike. Pedaling, not saying there's anything wrong with the throttle, it's just fun to pedal. Hybrid, that's how this bike is marketed, and it can rip through alleys, down sidewalks, etc. So adventure is there, but I would keep it in a city paved path type adventure, at least with factory tires. How far can you go on a charge? This is advertised at up to 45 miles per charge. I'll say maybe on flat ground and pedal assist 1 with the wind at your back, possibly. Myself, I bank on journeys of around 22-25 miles per charge. If you ride around in pedal assist 3 through 5 like I do. How much does it weigh? Well, there are 3 frame sizes, so it can vary by about 5 or 6 ounces, but around 60 pounds. So there's a lot of details about a nice looking and nice riding bike, but remember, there's still that third surprise. For that, we go back to the bike's battery, that piano black battery that has those 2 accent stripes. Those are functional accents. They're actually lights built right into the battery, and I tried to get good riding footage because this looks so super cool at night, but just couldn't do it justice. I think these clips kind of capture somewhat of just how awesome this looks. This is cool, right? And it gets even better because remember, there's that headlight tail light combo, and that works independently of the battery. Turn the headlights on, then you can turn the battery on, but then you can turn the headlight and the tail light off and run just the battery, which I call the bike's running lights. If you like a bike that stops people in their tracks, I'm telling you that happens, or you want hours of conversation just about the lights on your bike, this is definitely the setup for you. And check this out, the small details, those lights, they don't just turn off, they fade off. It is so cool. Let me slow it down. Yeah, that speaks for itself. And this video footage, it just barely captures the awesomeness of all this. It shows up so well, even in daylight. And by the way, that headlight, really bright at night. It lights up the road quite well. So cool day and night. And again, I want to mention, it runs independently of the head and tail light. I want this on every bike that I have. I just mentioned it works day and night, so you've seen it at dusk. Well, let me show you here at noonday sun. And this is 7 a.m. in the morning. Controlling the lights is simple, but first, general function. I want to mention this is a backlit display. The pedal assist functions. There are 5 pedal assist levels. 1 through 5 toggle via the up and down arrows. There is also a 0 assist function if you don't want any pedal assist. The power button doubles as an info button to toggle between odometer, trip meter, ride timer, max, and average speeds. Pressing and holding the up arrow turns on the head and tail lights. Doing that again turns on the battery lights. A third time turns off the head and tail lights, running battery light only. Fourth time turns them all off. And you have to admit, like e-bikes or not, the battery running lights are super cool. And I realize I've said cool countless times already, but if I said it a million times, it would only begin to touch the surface of how much I like this illumination. It looks good here, even better in person. Also want to mention the overall presentation and quality of the bike. This is bike shop level. There are a couple of things I think someone shopping for one of these bikes will need to know. It does come in the 3 frame sizes, but they don't give the size of those frames. The bike I have is supposed to be a medium, but it feels tall. So I measured the frame and it's a little over 19 inches, so I suspect this might be a large. I'm 5'10" and I measured the seat height. At its lowest level, because of the suspension seat post, it can't go down any lower than 37 3/4 inches. Also, another height thing, this is a step-through frame design, and some people choose a step-through frame for a reason. A rider needs to be able to lift their leg over 20 inches to clear the crossbar, creating somewhat of a high step for a step-through design, so something that should be noted. Is this all worth it? Well, I like the design. Obviously, I've bragged about it enough. I love the battery running lights. I feel like I'm running around town on the e-bike equivalent of a Tesla just because of them. But worth? That's subjective. And if you watch this channel, I don't tell you what you should or shouldn't buy, and I don't make recommendations. I can only share my insight and experience after having done this for a while, in the hopes that you're A, entertained, and B, maybe you can get some information along the way that might help you make a better decision for you. That's where I want to know, what do you think? Is this something of interest to you? Comment below and share your thoughts. And what about that battery light? Have you seen anything like that on a bike before? I'll put a link to this bike down in the description if you want to take a look. Thanks so much for watching KevCentral, and have a great day.